Hello, I'm Rixie. I recently had the chance to sit down and speak with Brian Colin. Brian's an artist, a filmmaker, an animator, and a legendary game designer. Chances are you're familiar with his iconic arcade title, Rampage. That's coming up on Collector's Maze. Well, hello, Brian. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with me today. I'm excited to hear the stories and to dig into the career and the life that you've lived. So I'm excited. Um, to,
I'm happy to share whatever is printable, although we're not printing, we're videoing. But yeah, I'm happy to share it. I'm looking forward to this. This will be fun.
I think it's going to be great fun. So, well, first of all, how is the day treating you? I mean, let's just, right up front.
It's been a good day. Busy time right now. They never explained to me that when you're going to grade school, they're telling you, and then you get to retirement, and then
Ah,
everything's flowers and daisies, and life is your own. Retirement's a lot busier than they ever made me believe when I was a kid. So it's
okay.
been busy. It's been wonderful, but it's all wonderful.
All right.
Everything's
Well,
good right now.
good to know. Good to know. Well, I have to say that this season that we're in, as far as the weather wise, is my favorite. You're in the Midwest too, right?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love fall. Fall is
Yeah.
my favorite time of year.
I'm excited for this time of year, and definitely excited for the season coming up, the spooky season, which I think may also be a favorite of yours if I have a little inclination there. Anyway, so where I want to start, if it works for you, is I'm curious what this journey from youngster in the Midwest to iconic, game designer, what that journey, what that path it was like, is like. I mean, because you're still on it, right?
I am still on it. I'm still working on games. And we haven't enough time to cover that. I'm just to put it in perspective
Exactly.
from the adorable little child that I still look like. Um, I'm working on my 50th high school reunion right now.
Oh
So I
wow.
got roped into that, and that's a lot of fun. So there's a lot to cover. So I don't think we want to cover it all. I
No,
don't think.
definitely not all. Just the highlights that pertain to what took you down this path of game design, right?
Okay. Well, I was born in a log cabin, which I helped my father build. No, I'm sorry. I I told you I ramble. I warned you about
No, I
this.
like that. I like that.
Okay. I grew up in a small Midwestern town outside the city of Chicago. We had a couple of empty lots across the street, which we called the Prairie. And spent most of my youth running around, digging forts, creating paths in just
Okay.
basically anybody would look at it as a bunch of weeds. But it was a great place to grow up. And then we moved probably around sixth or seventh grade to a different community where it was a new development. But back then, believe it or not, young people, developments took about 10 years to fill out rather than a year and a half for everything to get filled up.
Yeah.
So next to my house, which was the last house on the street, I had about 50, 60 acres of cornfield that
Uh,
and swamp and creeks that were my exploration areas. So my life as a kid was playing outside, imagining we're doing this as we're damming up the creek and blowing up this in the swamp where we weren't supposed to go, and snowmobiling across acres and tipping things over and breaking other people's limbs. It was a wonderful childhood. In school, I high school, I made a lot of as you mentioned, Halloween. We did what we called then the horror house, which got mixed up when some people heard it. We ran a horror house every year, and
okay.
people heard that a different way, so we renamed it the Fright
Okay.
Castle.
Okay. I can see where they'd go with that. I could see that. All
And
right. All
then
right.
did that every Halloween, and to control the crowds, because we really did do quite a bit. Some friends and I, we decided to start showing Super 8 movies in the garage to keep people in line because the line was going down the block. And we decided to make our own Super 8 film, uncut, Frankenstein's monster chasing people around, that kind of silliness. And that
Very
bug
cool.
took. So in high school, I made a lot of films with a lot of friends, and it was wonderful. I did not plan a career. I was one of those guys in high school that I'll do just enough to get a B. So I'm not getting in trouble anywhere, and I can fool around as much as I want. And most of my friends were like that too. Went to college, realized I had to go to college. This was still towards the end of the Vietnam years. And so I didn't know what I was going to do, but I found out that there was a couple of colleges in Illinois that had film production. And one was 14,000 a year and one was 1,400 a year. So
Uh,
I took the
yeah.
1,400 and it was great. It was
Easy,
wonderful.
easy math.
But in college, you don't get the but high school buddies that show up for everything. So in college, it's costing money. It's 16 millimeter film, which costs a lot. You got to send it away, get it back, see what mistakes you made. So I kind of moved over to animation to save a little money because I could also.
Okay, okay.
And now we'll skip ahead a bit. I got out of college. Got a successful ad agency where I'm basically working for beer and popcorn.
What else is there, right?
For local
What?
bars and that kind of thing. And I saw an ad for Bally Midway looking for an animator. And I'm thinking, they're a pinball company. What would they need I got it. They need someone who can paint on the back of glass. So they want to sell animator. So I go in and they said, no, we've seen your video. We're looking for someone who can, I did a video that won some international awards. And they said, we want someone to animate stuff for us. We're started our own in-house production, video production side. And we were looking for someone who can do animation for video games. And I said, really? Pac-Man needs an animator? And I was really not looking forward to the job, but they were willing to pay me real money instead of the beer and pretzel thing. And I remember telling a friend who was near the phone when I got the call that it's like, that's it. Childhood's over. I've got a real job. And I actually kind of choked up, and man, was I wrong. As I've said before, childhood's never been over, and it's never been anything like a real job. I totally backed into the best thing possible right at the right time.
Wow. Wow. So I see so many parallels. I mean, me growing up the same. I mean, the Midwestern town, I played outside until, mom, be home when the street lights come on, right? And we were in the woods, in the creeks, everywhere. And also down I went down a technology and art path, more heavily on the technology side, which is where I ended up. So this is fascinating. I mean, so really it's just the pivotal moment was you answering an ad that looked interesting that led to iconic games. I mean, we're talking, Rampage, Spy Hunter, Star Trek Voyager, and I know I'm missing a ton, but how many titles are you up to now? I mean,
I'm over 90. I couldn't begin without a list next to me here
yeah.
on the monitor. I couldn't begin to tell you all they were. My first game was Disc of Tron. They hired me to work on their first game as an in-house production crew there at Bally Midway was Tron. And but they weren't crazy about the kind of Nazi animation of this guy walking around. And they hired me to do the animation for Disc of Tron. And that's what turned me around just within weeks. Like I said, I wasn't really crazy about getting the job, but the fact that as a filmmaker, as an animator, it's weeks before you even see what you've done. And here at this new crazy video game world, I'm doing something in the morning and I'm seeing it in the game in the afternoon.
Wow.
And the first guy I worked with, a programmer named Bob Dinnerman, who did Discitron, was a perfectionist. And so he would let you get away. No, that oval needs 3 more pixels up here. But he was also very receptive to, Bob, why is this guy falling off the edge? There's no warning to the player. Well, we've only got a few, sprites, Brian, that we got to work with. I can do this guy falling at the edge in 2 frames, I promise. And so that kind of being able to contribute to the game made the thing wonderful. It was the Wild West back then, that the whole development team was in a little office away from the factory. They left us alone, kind of left all us kids to kind of figure things out on our own. It was a wonderful, wonderful time.
It sounds like a creative heaven. I mean, honestly,
It really was.
amazing, amazing. So we had Rampage, Spy Hunter, Star Trek, and there was another one in there that I caught on your Facebook page. And if people aren't following your Facebook page, they definitely need to follow your Facebook page, because a lot of interesting posts. And that's where I saw the filmmaker, and I'm like, oh, filmmaker, that definitely ticks some interest in bells for me. I'm toying down that route, amateur, but I enjoy the process and the creativity behind filmmaking. So animation is something else that really intrigues me. I'm not stepped into that, but I'm very curious about it. So at some point, I think I'd like to shift to the creative process and talk more about animation.
Absolutely.
But
I love talking about the design process.
there was, if I understand, there's a game Deathstalker, right? I saw that. I saw your post on your Facebook page, and we'll post your how to find you on your Facebook page there here at the end of this. But now, did I see that right? Is that combining film and arcade? I mean, how does that work? What's going on there? I mean,
I'm so glad you asked about that. I worked on a lot of games there in my first couple of years. They gave me a lot of creative freedom. I'd mention something offhand, and they'd hire a programmer and they'd start working on it. I'd see a game that was not doing well on test, and I'd say, okay, well, it's kind of the game's fun, but the game mechanic is fun, but let's, the art is kind of stale already, rocket ships. Let's put a little cute green guy in a spaceship. They let me do it. Today, that wouldn't happen in a million years, because I'd been only working there for months.
okay.
But work on Discitron, work on Spy Hunter, work on Demolition Derby and Sarge, and around that time, the word came out that, hey, Laserdisc is a thing.
Okay.
And they showed me some Laserdisc stuff that Bally Midway was considering, or was actually had already bought. And I'm looking at it going, that's just a camera rolling down some paper mache mountains with a spaceship floating in front of it. We could do better than that. And, a couple of us looked at each other and go, we can do better than that.
Oh.
So we went out with Super 8 and shot a film, actually Sharon Barr Perry.
That is so cool.
She was the girl she was the animator who trained me and put the bow on Ms. Pac-Man. She got in a skin tight nightgown, a nightgown, and put some fangs in her mouth, and we shot a black and white footage of our proposal, which was little more than, basically, we want to do a film text adventure game. You see a bit of it, and then you get the choice. Do you tell her your name? Do you introduce yourself, or do you run away screaming?
So that's like a choose your own adventure book, right?
Exactly.
But game stuff. Okay, all right.
And much to our surprise, and like I said, it was the Wild West back then, the director of engineering said, okay, what do you need? Well, I gotta buy film, I gotta, rent material, but, gave me a minimal budget. We shot it in Chicago in the coldest, and that's not exaggeration, the coldest February on record, in an abandoned mental institution that had electricity, but no heat. No heat at all.
Well, I mean, it was miserable, but man.
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, one of my guys, one of my crew members at one point is yelling, "Cut!" And I was like, "What are you yelling cut for? That's my job." He goes, "Brian, it's snowing." And I was like, "John, we're inside." "Brian, it's snowing."
No way.
Up, and it's snowing. The lights from the lights, when we turned them on before the shot, melted the frost from our breath from the ceiling. And it was so cold, it turned back into snow before it hit the ground. I kid you not.
The best practical effects ever, right? I mean, practical effects. You can't pay for that stuff. Now let me ask you this.
We couldn't pay for much, actually.
Is any of that in the did it make it in the film? Can you see that anywhere in the film? The
No,
snow.
you can't see the
Okay.
snow.
Oh, that would be
That
so
was
cool.
not
Just
acceptable. But we did finish the film. It took about 6 months of editing. And by the time we were done, unfortunately, Bally Midway had decided to do buy a laser disc from a group called, I don't know what the group is called, but the game was called NFL Football. And
okay.
NFL Football, some economy-minded executive at Bally Midway decided they could save money if
Mm,
they put it on video disc instead of laser disc.
mm.
So the
So,
first time this arcade game got tilted, it turned it into a $4,000 doorstop because
okay.
video disc had a needle. So by the
Okay.
time we got done with our film, they basically said to us, I'm sorry, we can't use this. We've decided to get out of the disc industry. And it sat in my basement, the finished cut, hour plus long, 16 millimeter, uh,
Oh, really?
sat in my basement for 30 years.
And has it made I mean, it's made a resurrection? Is that what I'm
And
understanding?
about 5 years ago, Doc Mack at the Galloping Ghost Arcade in Chicago in Brookfield, who also runs Galloping Ghost Productions. They're making their own video arcade games. He heard about it and he said, Brian, let's redo this. And I said, well, we can't really redo it because we only shot the film. He's like, Brian, you're still making games. Will you make this game for us? So my company, Game Refuge, made Deathstalker, the Spectre Files, and it was it would have never, honestly, truthfully, it would have never made a dime back in the day because it plays too long. But Doc's Arcade is a free play arcade, like many are now,
Okay.
and it turned out to be insanely popular with. I mean, Doc tells me that it gets played from the minute they get open till the end of day every day.
Really? Really?
Yes,
Okay. So you
I'm
said
very pleased.
that's Doc's Arcade, and that's in Brookfield. Brookfield.
It's Galloping Ghost Arcade. Doc Mack is the guy who runs it. It's in Brookfield, Illinois. And if
Illinois.
you've
Illinois.
never been there, it is the largest arcade in the world. I think is how it's
Okay.
judged in
So
by. Yeah,
that's
it's a definite stop for anybody that loves arcade games.
all right. All right. So they need to put that on the arcade mecca list. All right.
You do.
Definitely. All right. So
Absolutely.
filmmaker. So what are you know the horror genre? I dabble in a little bit, there was a show that I almost bought today. It's like I need to watch this again. But what are the key components that you think to a good horror film? I mean, what needs to be there?
Well, I'm a, I grew up a little chicken scaredy cat. I'd
Okay.
run when I heard Alfred Hitchcock presents March of the Marionettes music come on, or Twilight Zone. I fell in love with horror, admittedly, through the Warren magazines, creepy, eerie, and most importantly, I was at the right age, Vampirella. So famous monsters, that kind of stuff. I'm a guy who likes classic horror.
But yeah.
I want, I don't want to be terrified. I want to be, and then I want to laugh. So
Okay.
this film slash game Deathstalker is, think of it more like Mystery Science Theater
Okay.
than a straight horror film.
So is it more of like a horror comedy?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, basically, you're a private detective named Ed Spector, and you're looking for a missing girl named Buffy MacGuffin.
Buffy
So every
McGuffin. Okay.
Alfred Hitchcock
Love it.
fan know what that is. And you're going to the Derhatchett Institute for the abnormally insane in search of her, and you run into, just like every abandoned asylum would have, you run into vampires and werewolves and witches and mummies and Baron Derhatchett. Sorry, I love puns.
That's
Baron
okay.
Derhatchett and his creation, the monster, and of course Count Yorchikunsky, who is the ultimate vampire that may take your life. And one of the things we did with this that I was really excited about back in the day, unlike a fill your own adventure,
Mm-hmm.
choose your own adventure thing, or other games like Dragon's Lair that were beautiful animation, but it was just a quick, mindless joystick jump. You had to think about what you were doing. We gave you the opportunity, and we didn't have wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer, i.e., die, 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 and right answer. We had this one may take you on a different path. This one may kill you. It may not. This one will take you probably on a better path, but you can get through this game in dozens of ways, and you
Oh,
never
okay.
die. You never die until the end of the game. You either beat the monsters or you eventually get made part of Count Yorchikunsky's. Now, I was going to say harem, but that's only if you're playing as a woman.
Okay.
Basically, yeah, it doesn't. Basically, instead of killing you if you make a wrong move, it knocks you out and you wake up somewhere else.
Okay. Okay.
More damaged, a little more, So, and then how you beat it is things you find along the way and making the right choices. So we tried to do a lot different than the standard die, 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 wrong, right answer. Everything else is a wrong answer.
Well, that sounds like a fascinating game. Right now it just exists on one machine in one location. Is that right?
No, he's sold them. They're around the country.
Oh, they
And
are around the country.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I know they're in the Northwest. I know they're down in Florida. I don't know where they all are, but I know he's produced
Okay.
them. Galloping Ghost Productions actually produced them
Galloping
and
Ghost.
sold
Okay.
them.
All
And
right. All right.
I believe it's also on Steam, or a version of it.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask you. If someone wanted to track it down and play it, where would what's the best route? So
The
Steam,
best route is going to Galloping Ghost
Galloping
because
Ghost. Okay.
that's that's
Let's
a
take care of. Let's. I'm sure
play
they have a
usually.
list of where they are at. Right. I'm sure if
I'm sure they do.
you
You could
emailed
contact
somebody, you could find one
them.
somewhere
But
within
for
traveling
me, I'm
distance.
an arcade guy, so it's always better to play everything in an arcade if you
Well,
can.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Social
that's
component is there,
exactly.
and then people behind you are going, "Do this? No, 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 don't
Yeah.
do that. I did that and I saw this." That type of thing. So,
Tho-
all right,
Those those days are making a resurgence. I mean, with the
that's
free to play, I mean, they're they offer a little drink, a little eat, but you come in. And sometimes there's a cover charge, and you can just play the games.
all
And I,
day. Yeah, usually
um,
for one flat price.
so yeah, I mean, those are making a comeback. What's old is new again. I know my
I'm not.
kids.
I'm just
No,
old.
I on the outside I may be old, but on the inside I'll forever be 12. I don't
Absolutely.
think
Till you
I'll
look in
ever.
the mirror in the morning, you're 18 years old, right?
Yeah, well, I mentally I give myself about 12. That's probably about where I'm at. I mean, you could see the wall behind me. I mean, I'm about 12.
There you go.
All right, so you mentioned briefly a game refuge. So that is the company that you are chief creative officer. Is that right? Tell us more.
CEO,
Okay.
president, CEO.
Uh,
Back in the day in 1989. No, actually, I'm going a little too far back. Worked for Bally Midway. Bally Midway was bought out by its biggest competitor, Williams Electronics, who did Robotron and Defender and
yeah.
Joust. They bought out Bally Midway, and myself and the guy I did Rampage with, Jeff Nauman, programmer, were the only two game designers they kept. Williams took the Midway name. We did a couple more games for them, and then EA asked us to come work for them. And
Okay.
I said, no, they wouldn't let us stay in. Remote wasn't a thing back then. They wanted me to move to California, but I have an acre down
Oh
here
yeah, yeah.
in the northern Illinois here. And there was no way
Mm-mm.
I was going to give that up because what they were willing to give us was generous, but property was very expensive. And after about 9 months, they finally said, okay, well, what if we just give you the money to start your own company?
Ah, yeah.
Uh, okay,
Hey.
we can do that. And they did. And so Jeff and I left Midway on good terms, and well, Williams Valley Midway at this time, on good terms. And we started Game Refuge. And our first game for EA was a Sega Genesis game that was, as an original title, like non-licensed, was like their #1 game that year. It was called General Chaos. And I
General
don't know if
chaos.
you remember that one, but I
No, but
get
I'm
more
a,
on that one than almost any game I've ever done, than any game I've ever done. Fans of that game are obsessed with it.
General chaos. So tell us about that a little bit. What I've not played it, nor so I'm intrigued now. What is General Chaos about?
General Chaos is basically, it was the world's first real-time strategy, live action, not turn-based game ever, video game ever. It was one player against the computer, or two players, or three players, or four players, in which you saw the whole screen. You had a 5-man squad, and where you moved them and told them to shoot
Okay.
was, and it was chaos. It was insane. You had a bunch of different characters who were basically weapon types: the chucker, the launcher, the blaster, the gunner, and you just moved them around, told them to fire. You would, it was, and it was all comedic. It was not meant to be realistic. It was set in some sort of World War II-ish world that was all about you get hit by the right thing, you're a standing rack of bones that falls to the ground. I mean, nice. You can tell I was a Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes kid when I
yes.
So it was violent, but it was fun, if there is such a thing. Yes, there is fun violence. And the only issue with that is Jeff and I left Midway, and we did everything right. We closed up things. We got on a train, because I had by that time preferred trains to flying, and came out to EA. We came out to EA and proposed it. They all loved it. And then one guy, so we're basically floating without a raft here. And then one guy, one of their executives said, "You know what this really needs? We'd like it if you would make it street, gang related, rather than, this World War II stuff. No one's going to relate to that." And I said, no. I said, I got 2 little kids at home. I don't want to make anything that is too close to reality. This is in a World War II scenario, comic World War II scenario, for a reason. And then Jeff and I held our breath.
Yeah.
And it's like 1 beat, 2 beats. He's like, okay, we're behind that. And so it took off. Nice. But yeah, it's one of the times when, my mouth starts talking, and it's like, ooh, I wish I could kind of tone that down a bit and taken that back. I shouldn't have said that, but it worked out great.
Yeah, but
EA was wonderful back
then.
Did very well. But we continued making games for other people. We continued making games for Williams, Midway, Rampage World Tour. Obviously, 10 years after we did the original, they came to us and said, we've got our 14-year-old adolescent male, he's covered. We've got Mortal Kombat, we've got Narc, but we're looking for something that appeals to a broader group. So we said, let's redo Rampage. And they were on board with that. And I think that's probably the version most people know today, is the Rampage World Tour, because that went to every platform and is still very, very popular game.
Nice. I remember playing the original Rampage. I've not played the World Tour, so that one I'm going to be
dating yourself.
I know. Well, yeah, definitely. Well, you with some of the references, I'm getting them, so that just shows you right there. I mean,
anybody watching
Bugs Bunny.
What the hell are these old people talking about? But that's okay.
No, there's okay. Bugs Bunny, Woody Woodpecker, Chili Willy the Penguin, all those guys right there. I mean,
Chili Willy.
Yeah, Chili Willy. He was the best. Totally. So Game Refuge, what's in development? I mean, what are you working on now? Do you have some coming out? Are there some that people can go out and experience? What's going on?
Let's see. In terms of arcade games, the last one we did was Deathstalker about 5 years ago. No, that's not true. We did a game for a group down in Florida called an arcade called Arcade Monsters. We did an arcade game for them that currently they're doing the second version. And then what we're working on now, though, and this seems like a setup, but we didn't rehearse this.
No.
Is Major Snafu, which is General Chaos 2.
General Chaos 2. Okay.
After 30 years doing the sequel, we've started on it a couple times over the last decade. The first time I found out, when I was starting a promotional tour for it, found out I had cancer. That worked out okay.
Oh.
So then, but when we recovered from that, as personally and as a company, we started. It's like, okay, this is the time. It's spring. Let's do this. And that 3-week thing, COVID, came out. So we scrapped it again a second time, but now we're about halfway through. And I'm real excited about it. It's looking great. It's a sprite-based game. We added all the stuff we couldn't do on a Sega Genesis. So now it's very much the screen will expand or go down. It'll follow you around. It's smart. You don't have to do anything about it. You can touch if you've got touchscreen or
Okay.
mouse click, mouse. We're doing it on a PC, first of all. We'll see how it does there. And then a major publisher has the right of first refusal, and they may take it other places. Otherwise, we've got our own plans. But the first one's going to be on PC. But yeah, you can go, you go here,
Okay.
here. And so it's a lot more dynamic, and we've added a lot more characters, and I'm very excited about it. So
Yeah, this is very exciting.
Thank you for asking about it.
Well,
and that's what we're working on now. Yeah.
Very exciting. So General Snafu, right? Do I have that right?
Major snafu.
Major Snafu. Oh, so
General Chaos 2, Major Snafu.
So was
Part
that a
because of all the stuff that's been going on and trying to get the remake.
Major Snafu? Oh, okay. So after all the trials and tribulations of getting this sequel out, so
Right.
it sounds like there's going to be a lot of General Chaos fans very happy.
There we sold. Yeah, no, we didn't sell them. EA sold a ton of them. It was the reason the 4-player device was created by Sega for the Genesis. It's very, like I say, I get more mail on the old one than anything else. There's a lot of fans that have been waiting for it a long time. And for me, I don't want to say it's my magnum opus, because that's probably always going to be Rampage. But for me, it's something I've always wanted to revisit. I'm not someone that likes doing sequels as a general rule. There's too many good ideas out there you want to play with. But this is one that, boy, if we could do this right, we could do this and this and this.
Okay.
This kind of character. We need this. So yeah, Major Snafu is the
Major Snafu.
And he's a cool character.
Is that so? Your Mount Rushmore of games. I mean, what? How do you rank? I mean, Rampage is up there, right? Is that like number one?
Yeah. It's got to be for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Personally, they'd only called me a game designer. Midway never called anybody a game designer.
Okay.
And then they were showing Nolan Bushnell through the offices when I was working on a game called Zwackery. And they said, and this is the game's designer, Brian Colin. And I'm like, I ran out and changed my business cards the next day, because generally they didn't do that, or they'd never done it to my knowledge. And that has every game I've ever done has a personal memory for me. But when I did Rampage, I conceived it because I was arguing with the team, which is part of a good game development.
Yeah.
Back and forth. And I was like, I just saw this in a game at the show. Why can't we do background animations? Brian, we can't do that. But I went in, Brian, we can't do that. But I want to do big character, Brian.
Yes.
All we can do is move a rectangle. What are you going to do with a moving rectangle? So I looked at Sharon. I said, okay, a building falling into itself. That's a moving rectangle. We cover up the front with some cloud sprites, so it looks like it's collapsing into itself. And what knocks down buildings? Big figures. So I used 3, 4, 5 sprites to make the figure. I ran and got my buddy Jeff, the programmer, brought him in and said, if we do this, can we do this? And can we get this? And he's like, yeah. We all knew. I kid you not. We knew we had next year's #1 game. The game design document even starts out why the story of Rampage, or why this is next year's #1 game. We took it to our boss, and of course he said no. So I went over his head. Happily, I went over his head. Head of engineering says, oh, this looks great. This is wonderful. But no, you can't eat people. You can't be the bad guy. You can't eat police. And he went to the top 3 guys at the company, and no. Jeff and I started on it anyway, just to kind of prove out the concepts that we thought could work. And by an amazing stroke of luck, I mean, I've been blessed. Amazing stroke of luck. The top 3 guys at Midway were all fired. And the new guy that came in said, I'm coming in. Nobody needs to worry about their job. He came from retail. His name was Maury Furchin. came from running Montgomery Wards, I think. And he said, nobody has to worry about their job. I'll be starting on Monday. I've got an open door policy. And you can probably guess who
Yeah.
was waiting outside his door at 8:59 on his very first day. And he blessed the project. Otherwise, it never would have happened. And it broke every earnings record of its day. And prior to then, all my games, I would give suggestions and sketches, but art was always done by the pinball department because those guys are great artists. I'm a cartoonist. I work in pen and ink, and that's about it. And the head of the art department said, Brian, why aren't you doing the cabinet art for this? I can do the cabinet art.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, Rampage was everything. And then just to make it even better, it's breaking all the records, it's doing whatever. But, back in those days, we were pushing that hardware to the limit. We were, we had 768, honestly, different levels based on 128 cities around the country. And so I said to our marketing department, let's send a letter to all the newspapers in all these cities saying your town is about to be destroyed. And they said, no.
Come on.
So back then, in the days before email, I wrote literally not thousands, but over 1,000 letters and sent it to all these cities and generated hundreds upon hundreds of newspaper articles, TV spots about the game. Rampage for me will always be my Mount Rushmore. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't see how it could not. I mean, and I love the story of your persistence and your passion behind it. I mean, that's really what brought it to fruition. I mean, to continue to knock on those doors, to continue to like see the opportunities and not be afraid to, when he says I have an open door policy. So that's great. I love that story. That's amazing.
I mean, it's a team effort. I mean,
absolutely, yes.
Jeff Nauman was the best at tuning a game. He's a great programmer. And even though we were very different people, but because we both put the game over ego, the game over anything we were doing, we wanted to get that thing out there. And as an animator, when I first came on board, and the whole time I've been working as an animator when I was working at major companies, you work on everything. You're working on this guy's project and that guy's project and this guy's project. And you can see the difference between programmers who just go, okay, I did what I was told, I'm done. Or programmers who go, let's try this. No, that didn't work. Let's try this. No, that didn't work. Let's try this. So I became a designer out of self-defense. And Jeff was very much of the same mind of, all I care about is making sure this goes out, because games took 9 months to a year. And no, I did not want to work on anything for 9 months that wasn't going to get released. For me, it was all about, let's make this so it gets out there. And Jeff was very much the same way. And our sound guy, who later went to EA actually after he left Bally, everybody on our team, especially when it was that small initial team, everybody was passionate. Everybody was unafraid not everybody, but for the most part, we were all unafraid because the corporate part of the world hadn't descended on us yet. And that naive approach to, we can make this wonderful and no one's going to stop us, wasn't just me. It was throughout the department.
Wonderful. What a great story. I love that. So I mean, creativity and that creative environment. I mean, what do you think are the keys to nurturing that creative environment? I mean, is it openness? What makes that creative collaboration work? What's the recipe?
I think part of it is being funded. I really feel bad. I mean, the tools are out there right now, in the last 10, 15 years, tools are out there. Anybody can make a game as long as they get with people. You've got to be in the same room. The fact that you can do it remotely is possible, but it's that bouncing off, that synchronicity of, I'm looking at this from this way and it can't be done. And I'm looking at it from this way and it can't be done. Oh, that doesn't happen on a scheduled meeting over a computer. So that's part of it. You better be in the same room. The other part of it is funding. I mean, the fact that this was a full-time job for me, and for a lot of people, I'm working at Target and doing this in my spare time. That's harder because you lose the momentum, or it's harder to maintain the momentum. I think a lot of people too try to do too big for their first thing, or do something small, get it to work, get it to play. Does it make someone smile? Everything you wanted to put in this, put it in the next one, and put it in the next one, because it's harder to maintain, especially if you're not all getting paid. It's harder to maintain everybody's enthusiasm until every time you get something done, you all feel better. So that's what I would tell groups that are out there today. You need the funding, and you need the you need to understand that it's not just about making something that is what you want to make. The beauty, and I think George Gomez, former mechanical engineer and now pinball designer at Stern, I believe, he said it best. He said we have two clients. We've got the operator who wants the money. He wants all the money, and he wants the kids off there in 30 seconds so he can get the next quarter in. And you've got the player who wants to live forever, and we've got to make both of them happy.
Oh, okay.
I would add one more to that. And then you've got the employer who says, okay, we've got all these considerations. We can't let you work on this forever. We can't let you spend this much money on it. So as a designer, those three things put together is what everybody's got to be thinking about is, oh, it'd be nice if I had a better graphics card, or if I had more ROM space. And I've made all these mistakes. So and mistakes are the best way to learn. But the employer's telling you what you've got to work with, and then what we've got to achieve here on the player side, what we've got to achieve here on the operator side in the arcade world, or the publisher, whatever. And how do I put those three things together and still push against the box? That is what I love about what I do. Ideas are the easy part. Turning ideas into something real is really what lights me up.
Nice, nice. So a balancing act between the pyramid, if you will. So and then finding that sweet spot, and that's what brings the game home. I love that. Okay, so what would you tell, let's say, an 8th grade or high school student that wants to go into game design? What is, what do they need to focus on? What's important for them to learn, to know? What skills should they learn? Yeah. What's important for that 8th grade?
I wish I had a better answer for that. Like I said earlier, I backed into this. What I would say is, and again, this is corny as heck, but I don't know any other way to say it. Follow your heart. I thought I was going to be a filmmaker. I was, working on homecoming floats. I was doing whatever. The thing I live by is probably a film I saw as a little kid, when Mary Poppins said, in every job there must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap. The job's a game. And I believe that. And I don't know that it's been my mantra, but I don't care if I'm working at Pizza Hut or Target or flipping burgers. I don't care if I'm whatever. When I mow the lawn, yeah, it's all over the place, because back and forth is just too blurred, is too boring. Find the fun in your life. Find a way to make anything you gotta do, especially fun. Find the things that you like to do and do them as much as you can. Be responsible. Do what you gotta do. Get it done. Always, no matter what you're doing, put your best into it so that you're proud. There's nothing worse than going home after a hard day where you're exhausted and knowing that I didn't do as good as I could. Going home exhausted and going, I did the best I could, feels great. Because I backed into this, I really can't. The only advice I've given people over the last 20 years, friends who bring their kids over and say, tell my son what he needs to do, is get with friends. it's a team effort. It's not one designer. I couldn't have done any of this stuff if it had just been by myself. And the best thing about a team effort is that synchronicity, that serendipity of talking amongst yourselves, and I can't figure this, and I can't figure this, or what do we do this? My partner Jeff said it great one time. He's like, Brian will say this, and I'll say this, and if we don't agree, we know there's something wrong. But if we do agree, we know it's going to work. Or, but it takes that little twist, and all of a sudden it's like, and that's what it's all about. So do stuff with friends, get them, and then part of a designer's job is getting people excited. It's like a film director. Again, in those analogies, everybody's getting paid. So you're going to get people that are just going to do the minimum. But especially if you're working on your own on stuff before you go to school, because the tools are out there. I don't want to say don't go to an animation school or a trade school for video games, but the tools are out there. You can be doing this long before you leave high school. You can be getting with friends, making something fun, make it small, like I said earlier, get it done, and then move on to your next thing.
Very cool. That is great. Love that. Love that. So, where can people find what you have going on? I know you're appearing in different places. Tell us where we can come see Brian. Where do we go next?
Okay, my last event for this year, I believe, is the Pinball Expo, and they do video game stuff there, arcade stuff, especially there as well. A Pinball Expo in Schaumburg, outside Chicago, I believe the next to last weekend in October. And this year I'll be doing, my arcade history tour, where I talk about all of the games I made, Arch Rivals and Pigskin and Star Trek Voyager and everything before and after Xenophobe. My arcade years is what I focus on because that's pretty much the audience, but I'm happy to answer any questions about that. So Pinball Expo 23 in Schaumburg. You can find that online. My Facebook page, Brian Colin, just as a personal one, but I put a lot of stuff out there that I'm working on. The General Chaos official fan page on Facebook, the Game Refuge page on Facebook.
Okay.
What we're doing, we periodically put stuff out there. I don't do it as, you can follow me on Instagram and all that, Twitter and all that other stuff, but we're busy, so I don't post as much as I'd like to, but you can find out more about us there. And then there's the Game Refuge page, but I don't have the link right now at the top of my.
But we'll get all that in and put it in for everyone to grab. Busy is good, right? We like busy.
Busy's great.
I love busy. Busy's good.
Right. Like I say, I'm retired, so it's surprising. Of course, I just had my first granddaughter this year, and my next grandchild, my grandson, is going to be born in a few weeks. So it's busy in all kinds of ways.
Congratulations on that. That is, I always say, if I'd have known how much fun grandkids were going to be, I would have started there first. But I don't think it works like that.
They never explain. I don't know how this stuff all happens anyway.
Yeah. It just, I just show up. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this. A lot of great information. I'm totally going to dig and find Dardaque somewhere because I want to go play that. And I definitely want to dig in and find some animation. Any title of yours, animation-wise, that I should go look for?
There's a Brian Colin Game Refuge channel. Brian Colin Game Refuge. I'm never sure what it's called. You can see In Search of a Plot, which is my multiple international award-winning that got me into this gig in the first place, and a bunch of other stuff that we've worked on over the year. Arctic Stud Poker Run, which is a full contact deathmatch racing poker game, if that makes any sense, in a Cthulhu mythos reality. Wow. There's a lot of stuff on there. So that's the YouTube. That's all. Did I say it's YouTube?
YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. That's all on YouTube. Okay. I'm going to stop rambling. Go ahead.
No.
Hey, I gotta say, I've loved this interview because you've hit on things that I love talking about, which is the design aspect more than you did this game, you did this game, you did this game, you did this game. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm an inquisitive person. I love the nuts and bolts of how things work, of how things came about. I find inspiration in your story, because when I'm doing something in my life that's like, well, Brian didn't give up. I'm not going to give up because it'll be that next knock on the door or that next that next place I turn. And I love that you said yes to making an arcade game when that wasn't where you thought you were heading. I mean, you were heading down a filmmaking and animation path. So I think it really speaks to me that you need to always stay open. You never know what opportunity will step your way. I mean, in goodness, if you had not said yes to, Bally Midway back then, we wouldn't have Rampage, right? I mean, that's, um, an amazing collaboration that, I feel things like that take a lot, they have a life of their own, right? I mean, you guys
Oh yeah,
poured
yeah.
your heart and soul into
No
it.
one was more surprised than I when Rampage became a movie. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
30 years after the game, and then I was lucky enough to meet everybody, and they were all wonderful. And The Rock is telling me he used to
oh,
ditch school to play the game. It was
real,
just like
okay.
it was amazing. It was incredible. It was incredible. So and you don't know. I mean, I stay focused on what I'm working on. I don't really pull my head up from the desk. I count on more on my kids or my employees to tell me what's going on in the world. But yeah, a life of its own is exactly what it has. And the fact that I was able to be a part of it is just wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah, what a blessing! What a blessing! We thank you for the legacy that you've laid out. This is great. I love it, Brian. Thank you so much for your time tonight. If you make it to Kansas City ever, be sure and shoot me an email because I would love to get together, have dinner, and talk about filmmaking and animation more. I've thoroughly enjoyed this, so thank
Sounds
you.
good. Sounds
Thank you.
good. Thank you for this. This was wonderful.
All right, have a great night, my friend.
You too. Bye-bye.
What a great conversation. I really enjoyed hearing how Brian followed his creative heart, and that led to a career that he was passionate about, and it wasn't like work at all for him. That's very inspiring. I hope that you'll check out all of Brian's creations. As soon as the interview finished, I went out and had to watch his award-winning animated short, In Search of a Plot. That's a great short. Very well done. It's worth watching. We'll have all of Brian's social media linked in the description below, so be sure and check out all that he's got coming up. I'm excited about Major Snafu. I want to see that one, and it's inspired me to go and check out General Chaos, so I'm going to be looking for that where I can go play that. And I definitely want to get out there and find Deathstalker. Now that looks interesting. Well, I hope that you liked this interview as much as I did. I had so much fun. Brian is a really cool guy, and I hope to get to talk to him again soon. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We've got more guests coming up, and I'm really excited to share them with you. So thanks a lot for checking out The Collector's Maze.